Welcome to Scalera Show. I appreciate you being here. We're going to talk about the Iowa Caucus. Just a few days away. Things are heating up. Only a few points separate Bernie and Sleepy Joe Biden. Going to be an absolute barn burner. Can't wait to see it on Monday to kick off the primary season. But it's all about second choice. Who's your second choice? Usually in most elections, second choice doesn't mean nothing. But in Iowa, it means absolutely everything. And the reason why is because of 15%. You have to get to 15% to be considered a viable candidate in Iowa. So if you vote for somebody and they get 15% or over, well, then you can go take your butt home and go start some dinner, right? But if you don't get, if the candidate you're supporting does not get 15%, they are not considered a viable candidate. And that allows you to go vote for another candidate. So it's all going to come down to who's everybody's second choice. So let's get into this. And we're really going to focus on Bernie and Sleepy Joe Biden, because those two, the race is coming down to those two. So who are those two candidates going to cipher their votes from? Let's get to it. The first person who we're going to talk about is Pete Buttigieg. Now, Pete is going to be a viable candidate. If you look at the real clear politics average, you look at the polls, he's going to be over 15%. Not much over 15%, but I definitely think he will be. He put all of his eggs in one basket. He'll probably finish a very solid third place. So because he's going to be over 15%, his supporters are going nowhere. Once they vote for him, they're going to take their butts home, and that's going to be it. So the next candidate is going to be Amy Klobuchar. Now, she's been surging lately. Last poll they had, she had about 10%. She probably won't get 10%, probably be more like 7 or 8%, somewhere in there. But who are her supporters most likely to vote for on the second go around? And the person I think they're going to vote for is Joe Biden. Her policy is much closer to Joe Biden than Bernie Sanders. And they agree a lot on the health care. Their health care plans are very, very similar. She went against Bernie many times in the debates and when it came down to health care. So I think the majority of her supporters are going to go to Biden, which is a pretty good chunk. She's got a good amount of support. So the next candidate is Andrew Yang. Now, Andrew Yang doesn't have as much support as Amy Klobuchar. He's probably going to get maybe 3%, somewhere in there. And he did say that he's already been approached by several campaigns about supporting them because, that 3% means a lot. That 3% is the difference between winning and losing, right? And he also, a funny thing, came out this week and said that he would not mind being Joe Biden's vice president. So where do you think most of his supporters are going to go? Again, they're going to go to Joe Biden. So what leads me to the last candidate I'm going to talk about. Now, I know there are others, Steyer and people like that, but, Tulsi Gabbard. I don't think they're going to gather more than maybe a point or two. So I'm not going to talk about them. So the last candidate I want to talk about, and she is the most important out of all the candidates, is Elizabeth Warren. Elizabeth Warren is right on that 15%. Real Clear Politics average has her at 14.7% when I looked at it yesterday, and a lot of polls have her right around there. So let's say she underperforms just a little bit and comes in at 12% in a lot of districts. Well, then her voters can turn around and vote for another candidate. Who are they going to vote for? They're going to vote for Bernie Sanders. And that is super important for him, because I think that is going to be the difference between winning and losing. I think if she gets under 15%, gets 12 or 13%, and her supporters can go and support somebody else, I think Bernie is going to win the Iowa caucus. But if she overperforms and comes in 15%, 16%, 18%, somewhere in there, then she's a viable candidate, and her supporters are not going to be able to turn around and support Bernie Sanders. And then I think if that happens, Joe Biden's going to win the Iowa caucus. So really, in my opinion, it comes down to Elizabeth Warren and how much support she's really got in Iowa. Now, in 2016, there was a very common theme. It was a very common theme for Trump, and it was a very common theme for Bernie Sanders. Now, the thing that they had in common is that they overperformed in the states that they needed to. Now, in another video, I talked about how they overperformed big time in the Midwest. But Bernie Sanders also outperformed in Iowa. I think that the Real Clear Politics average had him somewhere around 43% in 2016. He ended up around 49%, 48%. I think he overperformed the polls by 6 points. So that's the X factor as well. It's another factor that you got to add in. Same thing with Trump. Are they not getting the Bernie supporters? Because remember, again, in another video that we made, grassroots support usually leads those people. There's so many of them, and there's so much support, and there's people who haven't voted before or rarely ever voted, that the polls never pick up, that you never talk to. They're motivated enough to go to the polls and vote for a certain candidate. So that's why I think he's going to overperform as well. So who knows what's going to happen. But again, my prediction, if Elizabeth Warren gets over 15% or 15% or over, Joe Biden's going to win. If Elizabeth Warren gets under 15% and she's not a viable candidate, Bernie Sanders is going to win. So tell me what you think. It's going to be super exciting. Can't wait for the entire race. Again, I think it's going to be a broker convention. No matter what happens, you're going to hear all this stuff about the Iowa caucus, how important it is, and the whole 9 yards. But the bottom line is, it really doesn't matter who wins, because Bernie's going to win New Hampshire. Biden's going to win South Carolina. He's going to win Florida. They're going to go on to Super Tuesday and split all kinds of delegates. And in the end, it's going to be a broker convention. Nobody's going to get to that threshold. It's going to be super fun. Let me know what you think. Let me know who you think's going to win. Make a comment in the comment section. Like the video, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.